what's your like mental approach when it comes to doing interviews? Like, are you looking forward to discussing certain topics, or is it just like part of the job pretty much for you at this stage?
I don't really do a lot of interviews. I mean, the way it used to be. Everything's changed now. Now it's all podcast.
Yeah.
For the most part. There's never this.
Yeah.
This used to be what it always was when I was on tour, but now it's never that. It's usually, someone with their phone and video in it, or a podcast online. But as far as press on tour, there's a couple things here and there, but it's mainly on the phone or podcast now, and mainly interviews are when a record's about to come out, and I have to do 2 months of interviews, and but usually by 2 months of interviews, I hate talking about myself after that point. But it's I could think of worse things.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. What's a topic that you're really interested in, enjoy discussing during this sort of things?
I think most people ask me the obvious stuff, where it's like, oh, you're into horror music or horror movies, so what's your favorite horror movie? And I feel like I've said that a million times. But I'm into some. I talk about stuff that people don't like. I'm almost like a historian in 80s glam rock.
Nice.
Which is my favorite music that I grew up on, which is bands like Twisted Sister and early Motley Crue and Wasp, and all those bands from those eras that you heard of, and all the bands that you never heard of. I know all of them, and I had all their albums, and I could name the members, and I could name you their record. I could tell you the year it came out. That stuff is fun for me to talk about, but it doesn't really get talked about much because most of those bands are unknown or just ancient history these days. So I enjoy that. I'm also a big fan of cats.
Nice.
Believe it or not. When we went to Istanbul, Turkey a couple of days ago, I spent a day and a half just walking the city feeding cats.
Nice.
I bought cat food, and I walked around, and that makes me very happy. But I do enjoy horror movies, and I do enjoy talking about it. I just when people ask me about new horror movies and things, I don't know much about new horror movies. I kind of stopped watching horror movies in the mid '90s, and everything else I watch now is really just rewatching the old stuff. So I'm up for watching new stuff. I just don't usually have the time or the patience to sit through. I would rather watch something I've seen a million times than something I've never seen, as bizarre as that sounds.
I think it makes perfect sense because, funny enough, we're going into the topic of horror movies. But to be fair, I really share this opinion because you could really see the aspect of perfecting the craft in the horror movies back then, because I'm really into them obviously as well, and everything new that comes up, it just seems as a very bad remaster of the old ideas,
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm missing about and again, I don't want to sound like the old guy going, I hate everything that's new, but it's just the practical effects, the real effects, where stuff looked so ridiculous that it didn't look real, was real to me, or real enough, and I appreciated the effort of someone going through the trouble of, like the original Alien movie, the alien coming out, the stuff like that would be CGI now.
Yeah,
it would not be the practical effects of all the stuff in that. And that movie is literally just wires and it's like milk.
Yeah,
it's just so much. That's the stuff I love. And I don't know if people can appreciate it that didn't grow up during that time. So I don't ever try to say you don't know new movies are bad. Like, people like what they like. It's just like this morning I was watching the Munsters in my hotel room.
Yeah.
The original Munsters, and I know Rob Zombie has remade the Munsters, and for some people, that's their Munsters. For the new kids, that is their Munsters.
That's true. And
they may watch the old stuff and go, "That's stupid. That's not funny to me." But to me, that's where I grew up. So I'm just glad to see that horror has made its way around. When I started doing this, horror movies were just underground, and then all of a sudden Walking Dead is the biggest TV show in the world, and zombies are everywhere. And when it's insane to me.
Yeah.
You know, and but I've always dedicated what I do to what I know, and I know movies, and that's what I try to do, and I still do. I'm still singing about, and I'm still listening to the same music, and still watching the same movies. So the same ingredients to what makes me creative is still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree, and I think especially I really distinguish the trends when it comes to horror making in terms of that filmmakers nowadays are really more concentrated on, I guess, engaging the horror effect through visuals,
Right.
rather than, for example, my favorite horror one is The Exorcist, and
Yes.
it was this scene where Regan with the cross,
Yeah, that's something you would not expect.
Exactly,
to see.
and it's just the absolutely indescribable effect that this sort of activity has on you. It's not the visual; it's just the the psychopathy, I guess, in it.
Mm-hmm.